Welcome to the deep dive. So today you've given us this really rich collection to explore. It's called The Mundane and Sacred, writings by J. James Michael from March 6th to 12th, 2025.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of work, isn't it? It's structured as, well, a three-part poetical suite.
Okay.
You get invocations, preludes, and then the main sections.
Yeah.
The mundane, the program, and the sacred.
Right?
But there's more, too.
Yeah.
An interlude, epilogue, afterwards. Plus, a look at an older manuscript and an appendix with extra poems. It's quite comprehensive.
Okay, so quite a bit to get into. Our goal here then is to really dive into the author's time at an abbey, looking at those experiences, those reflections.
Hmm.
And what really seems to jump out is how these, well, ordinary, everyday moments get woven together with these deeper spiritual insights.
Absolutely. And it feels like there's this constant thread running through it all,
Yeah.
this promise of joy.
Yeah, that phrase keeps coming up.
It does. And you see the wide range of things feeding into it. The inspirations listed. I mean, everything from Ash Wednesday and Lent.
Right, the liturgical stuff.
Exactly. But also just, simple observations. Daffodils blooming, moments of quiet thought. It covers a real spectrum.
And it's quite revealing, isn't it, what the author says in the interlude section?
Yeah.
About how their view of poetry changed.
Oh, definitely. That shift from seeing it as something to, ease the pain of living
Yeah.
to something that actually unveils the joy of living. That's a fundamental shift.
It really sets the tone for everything that follows, I think, how we should approach reading it.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Which brings us naturally into the mundane, that first suite, the arrival, the initial feelings about the place.
And the arrival itself has this, well, the author calls it a slightly magical synchronicity, right?
Mhm.
Arriving on the 5th at 5:55.
Yeah, a nice touch. But then, real life happens.
Right, the lost credit card, the taxi driver issue, being late.
Exactly. Those little bits of mundane chaos.
Hmm.
But it almost makes the welcome scene warmer, doesn't it?
It does. Despite being late, that welcome at Bonnevaux sounds genuinely, well, joyful.
And that image of the Ash Wednesday crosses, big ones, right on people's foreheads. It's stark, but it carries that symbolism of hope, resurrection.
And the saved pizza. Can't forget the saved pizza.
Classic Benedictine hospitality right there. It's those little human touches.
Totally. And then the description of the author's room, the cell in the guest house, wabi rather than sabi.
Which is interesting. It points towards that Japanese aesthetic, finding beauty in imperfection, in the simple, perhaps slightly worn.
It creates this sense of quiet solitude, but right after that warm communal welcome. A nice contrast.
And then we settle into the daily rhythm. The Lenten eating habits, for instance.
Yeah, that's a big shift for someone used to eating just once a day, right? Suddenly it's up to 3 meals with others.
Even allowing for little treats, like chocolate or a cookie, it shows that adjustment to the communal life, the Abbey's rhythm.
And it's not all high spirituality either. There's the practical stuff, like spring cleaning.
Right, presented as just,
Hmm.
normal, part of the regular orderliness, not some special Lenten chore. Grounding.
Keeps it real.
Then you get these lovely descriptions of the walks around the grounds, feeling that connection to the Cistercian history, but also just the sensory details. The grass getting greener, the daffodils starting to bloom, really places you there in that specific moment of early spring.
The Abbey Library, though, sounds like a really central space for the author.
Oh, definitely. You feel the connection described there, the worn leather Chesterfield, the stone floor, those big ceiling beams, the chandelier.
A realm of knowledge, she calls it.
Yeah. And feeling that sense of serenity, even a connection to Swami Satyananda in that space. It's like the library became this container for contemplation, almost beyond specific traditions.
That's interesting how different elements merge.
And the Abbey tour adds more layers to that.
Right.
Christelle is the guide,
Right.
taking them through the kitchen with its original fireplace, the refectory where the pizza rescue happened, and mentioning the stream running underneath it.
Wow.
The library, again, the comfort, the ashes mentioned there, then the contrast with the formal salon.
With the inset paintings.
Yeah. And upstairs, seeing a Tibetan nativity scene, the attic beams.
So a mix of history and different cultural touches.
Absolutely. Then the cloister, the contemplation room, and this is interesting, Christian, like meditation cushions.
Ah, so that blend is physically present, too.
Exactly. The chapel, noted as being quite cold with its stained glass, and the labyrinth outside, that symbol of a journey.
And the barn. That sounds unique, too.
Yeah, a multi-purpose sacred space. Chapel, assembly hall, described with sunlight streaming in, a wood sculpture, that Picasso-esque rug.
With doves and crosses.
And just chairs and cushions. suggesting flexibility.
It paints a picture of a place that's both deeply traditional and somehow adaptable.
And the mention of pilgrimage, the history of Benedictine houses welcoming travelers. That context explains the warm welcome, doesn't it?
It does. It frames the whole experience.
Then there's that beautiful passage about the night sky after Compline.
Oh, yes. Listing the constellations, the stars, like old friends.
Finding that peace, that sense of being right at ease, looking up at the cosmos. It's a lovely moment of connection.
And shifting to smaller things, those little flashes of joy. The vision at breakfast.
Linking back to a childhood memory, a simple compliment about braids.
It's amazing how those small things can echo through decades, isn't it? The power of a kind word.
So true. And then the just desserts story.
You have to love that one. The cookies, Stephanie the pastry chef.
And the author's slightly mischievous thought about flirting for the sake of others.
Just adds that touch of lightness, the simple pleasure of good food and company.
Exactly. Which actually leads us quite nicely into this second suite, the program. This is where we get into the more structured spiritual side of things.
Right, the actual practices, the playing monk experience, as the author puts it.
Yeah, sounds quite immersive. That early morning meditation, which apparently went from optional to mandatory for the group,
Okay.
using sacred music on earbuds, lists examples like Ashana, Benedictine monks, and that whole process, the walking meditation using a motion sensor light, then the sound of the bowl signaling the shift to seated meditation. Very structured.
And the missal comes in here too, right, for daily prayer.
Yes, using it for prayers and meditation throughout the day. Following the structure, the readings, the chants, it highlights that traditional framework of monastic life.
Then we get this glimpse of the author's personal practice, marked private.
Which sounds quite intense. The Latin phrases, I nomini patre, ha ana, nuisevianic, maran atha, feeling vibrations.
Suggests as a deep, personal, inner experience.
Definitely. And the description of the morning meditation, feeling solitary but also communal.
Right.
The dissolving of the word, that gentle return with the sound of the bowl, and connecting it all back to that joyful promise of resurrection.
The reflection sessions sound important too, the group of 13.
Yeah, exploring themes together, like the nature of joy, where it comes from, that communal processing of deep ideas.
Though it wasn't all comfortable, was it? That follow-up reflection on the words from Romans.
Yes. Fornication, impurity, licentiousness. The author admits to feeling squeamish.
Adds a bit of relatable honesty, I think. It's not all serene insights.
Not at all. Like the yoga experience, described as initially unwelcome.
Yeah. But then finding insight through it, especially focusing on the breath, breathing with awareness.
And that amazing anecdote during Savasana, laughing for world peace.
You have to wonder what prompted that. And then actually drifting off, very human.
Very. The walking meditation gets a mention too, those specific mindful steps. Using the gong for cues.
Cultivating presence through movement.
And the labyrinth, described as a single-path pilgrimage.
I love that description, that step-by-step journey inwards, finding that place of rest, and then the walk back out being somehow transformative.
It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it? For so many kinds of inner journeys.
It really is. That idea of needing to go inward to come out changed.
Absolutely. And then the meals provide another interesting contrast.
Right. Silence at breakfast and lunch.
But then conversation, fellowship, even wine at dinner in the refectory.
That little aside about forgetting someone's name after the wine offer is quite funny.
It's with a touch of realistic social awkwardness.
And complain, the end of the day service.
Sounds incredibly atmospheric. Descending into darkness, the flickering candles, the chanting, O Jesu Domini Christi, Salve Regina, and then the final extinguishing of the candles into silence.
A powerful way to end the day, leading into that quiet time in the cell, reading with the stars as a sort of cosmic bedtime story.
Exactly. Which brings us to the interlude.
The unplanned poetry reading.
Yeah, in the library. Started small, but then the group grew. Suggests a real appetite for that kind of sharing.
And this is where that key reflection comes up again, right? The purpose of poetry shifting.
Precisely. From easing pain to revealing joy. Directly connecting back to the work's title and that central theme.
Yeah.
And then the encounter with the cats.
Oh, right. Mimi, Manu, and Chow Chow. In the dark vestibule after the reading.
That little struggle to keep them out of the library is just a charming, slightly chaotic, very real moment.
A perfect little breather before diving into the final suite, the sacred.
Which does feel like a deepening of the exploration.
Yeah.
Getting into more explicitly contemplative territory. Though, as the author notes, the line between mundane and sacred gets pretty blurry.
It dissolves. And the exploration of contemplation itself is fascinating.
Yeah, moving past definitions, calling it a pure experience,
Mm.
a doing, a being, a happening, suggests it's something beyond just thinking about it.
Something you experience directly.
Exactly. And contemplation, too, gives this vivid image of an inner state. Darkness, then this intense, colorful, shapeless light.
Wow. What do you make of that shapeless light?
Well, it could suggest moving beyond form, beyond the known, maybe encountering pure energy, pure potential, or something divine that can't be contained in familiar shapes.
Interesting. And then the morning mist as a visual representation of the sacred abode. So poetic.
Beautiful imagery. Evokes mystery, beauty, something ethereal.
The voice, too. Described as this meek, gentle stirring of truth, life, love.
Speaking in the silence,
Mm.
and urging the listener get drunk on this spiritual wine.
That's quite an exhortation. Suggests something really transformative, intoxicating about that inner voice.
It does. Then walking becomes this metaphor again. A solitary journey, but also shared somehow.
With changing feelings, burdens lifting, becoming a never-ending prayer of the heart.
And judgment gets reframed, doesn't it? Not external, but internal condemnation, reversed into self-acceptance.
That feels like a really significant inner shift.
Powerful.
It leads into awakening, moving past self-criticism,
Yeah.
realizing that deeper divine nature, the I am a God realization.
I am child of the Most High.
Yeah. Very profound statements of identity.
The candle metaphor is lovely, too. Just
Mhm.
burn steadily, share your light. Simple, but potent.
It is. And the clouds, that feeling of wanting to just drift, surrender, merge with something vast.
That sense of letting go.
Then reflecting under the stars, contrasting the science, the sheer scale of the cosmos. With that sense of awe, of wonder, pointing towards a one true eternal.
It bridges the intellectual and the mystical.
And the lamb, the lost sheep found by the shepherd, such a timeless image of care, redemption.
It resonates deeply, that sense of being sought after, valued.
The I am section feels like a real crescendo.
It does. This cascade of poetic declarations. I am the wind, I am the rain, I am the mountain.
Yeah.
Connecting with everything.
Culminating in I am the I am.
A powerful affirmation of unity, of divinity within.
And after all that, the answer is simple.
Remarkably simple.
Yeah.
Stillness, absorbing silence, just being.
No complex doctrine, just presence.
Which flows beautifully into the litany of joy.
And two parts, right? The first is very sensory.
Yes, joy found in nature. The sky after rain, sunlight, butterflies, birdsong, the woods, the brook. Concrete, tangible things.
And the second part is broader.
Much broader. A long list of joy is statements, covering everything from simple pleasures to deeper connections. A real celebration of joy in all its forms.
It feels like a culmination of that whole promise of joy theme.
Absolutely. And then the afterwards section provides this gentle landing.
Returning home, homeward bound.
Yeah, carrying that feeling of being a child of God, remembering the community, the experience.
And a lasting impact of stillness and silence.
Even the darkling evening becomes this invitation to contemplate again, leading into that simple hope of morning has broken.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into the mundane and sacred, we've really traced that journey, haven't we? Through the everyday details and the profound practices at the Abbey.
And always coming back to that central thread, that promise of joy found in both the small moments and the deep stillness.
It really makes you think, this collection. It kind of invites you, the listener, to look for that interplay in your own life, doesn't it?
It really does. Where do you find the mundane touching the sacred? What are those moments, big or small, that spark joy for you?
What would your own litany of joy sound like?
Exactly. It's definitely something to reflect on long after we finish talking.
Well, thank you for sharing this really unique and thought-provoking collection with us. It's been a fascinating exploration.